Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So far, a lot of stocks are falling off this morning. Twitter stock is all over the place in pre-market today. Basically, news was released that Elon Musk is actually not joining the Twitter board. And I think this news is, it's not bad news. When Elon joined when he was set to join the Twitter board, he was capped at how much Twitter he can actually own, and I think that was around 14% of the company. If he ends up not joining the Twitter board, which is what he's going to do, he's not going to join the Twitter board, he can buy as much of the company as he wants, and then he can really do whatever he wants with it. And then, Tom, I think you're muted.
Yeah, he really can. That's going to be pretty huge because, obviously Elon is a huge player with this. And as we can see, it caused a pretty big move out of the stock this morning. Like in pre-market, Twitter was all the way down to 42.50, which is a pretty big drop from the closing price around like 46.15 on Friday. So that's pretty big there. But I think you're right, Mike. I do believe that that's why he's doing this also. And, I know that like whenever he first joined, there was a few articles that came out that said he wouldn't be able to do a takeover if he joined the board. So I guess maybe he's going to try to do one of those like hostile takeovers, Mike. And if he does, that would be very interesting because I know we haven't seen that in a long time, especially out of some bigger companies.
All right. So some other interesting price action we have going on in the market is with NIO. NIO is down around 10% today. They suspended their production today, Tom. There was some pretty bad news that came out. It appears to be related to the COVID lockdowns and the supply chains over there in China. So, NIO's taking a pretty big hit this morning.
Yeah, this is pretty bad, Mike. Down 10%, and it closed Friday above $20, and now we're all the way down to like 18, almost 17.80. So definitely some big moves here, and man, that sucks with NIO, Mike. Like I'm looking at the Thinkorswim news tab here, and it's definitely some pretty bad news. And they even said that their vehicle sales were significantly lower month over month. So it's not good to see that ever. And I'm seeing a lot of the other China EV plays starting to fall off as well, like XPEV. Like poor XPEV here is almost down 10% as well. Even LI is also down. So we're definitely seeing the China plays take a pretty big hit today. And, I will say like BABA and stocks like that were coming back up in pre-market, but whenever the market opened, they really rocketed back down.
Yeah, how are stocks like Tesla doing? Because all the other EVs are tanking.
Yeah, they're not doing good either, Mike. They are down 4.4%. They fell back below $1,000 this morning, which was pretty telling. That's a pretty big support there around $1,010 and then $1,000. Like there's been lots of movement around those levels over the past couple of months, and we just rocketed right back below there. So the stock's definitely coming down today, and man, Elon needs to come out with some good news or something because that cyber rodeo last week was a little bit underwhelming. I'm sure a lot of people were looking for this one to start rising again.
Yeah, like the event was cool. It just wasn't enough to move the stock, And just like we talked about it multiple times before the event, it's like the event can be, awesome. Like I thought it was very entertaining. I thought it was a pretty cool event, but it just wasn't enough to really get the stock moving.
Yeah, it really wasn't. There's just so many. Like the events are cool, obviously, and they usually make some pretty nice announcements, but they usually don't have anything too crazy. Like at those types of events, I will say like sometimes, Mike, like whenever I see like Apple do some of their events and stuff like that, I've found, or at least personally, I feel like they go a little bit more smoothly like than the Tesla ones. But either way, I mean, it was a good event, but the stock's obviously down. And, I will say like I don't necessarily blame Tesla's event for the stock going down. The event was probably just, not going to do anything, but the overall movement's probably just with the overall tech sector here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because everything's basically falling this morning. Everything from Nvidia to like Starbucks is down today. So that's interesting. Yeah, and Nvidia is down like 5%, Tom. I could have swore I read a news article about this one this morning. What was it? I'm trying to find it. Let's see. Oh, it looks like they got downgraded. I think that's what it was. So they got downgraded, and their price target is now at like 225, and it's coming from 360.
Whoa, and then there's another one, Mike, where it says, well, an article that says Nvidia has an average rating of outperform and price targets ranging from $200 to 410. So there's definitely a lot of different price targets out there, but that's crazy to see him cutting that, Mike, down to 225. That's definitely pretty big because it was at 360. I mean, that's pretty big for a cut, Mike. And I know we've been seeing a lot of companies do this lately with cutting some of their price targets, but still, I mean, that's pretty telling for Nvidia to be cut that much. And both AMD and Nvidia are both down today, Mike. And I know AMD fell below that $100 support we were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And then Michael said, good morning, guys. Think it's a good time to buy AMD? I would have to do a full-on fundamental analysis to answer that question. So that does take a little bit of time. So obviously I can't answer that question. But if you plan on holding it for like the very long term, then it should be good. Once I do that full-on fundamental analysis, then I can have a better answer for you. But it just depends on how long you're looking to hold it for the most part.
Yeah, like if you're going to buy shares and hold it for the long term, I think now is at least a good time to start averaging in. I mean, we're down a lot from highs, and, AMD could go a lot lower. It could. It definitely, it just broke below that $100 support, so I could definitely see it going lower now. But, either way, though, I feel like averaging into it might be good here if you like shares. But I will say, we just broke below 100, and who knows, we might go on a downtrend for a couple of weeks. And, we're starting to see the SPY sell off along with other big tech stocks. Even Apple and Microsoft are falling down in some pretty big ways here. Like, look at poor Microsoft. So, yeah, we're definitely going to see some volatility, Mike. And I wouldn't be surprised if AMD went a little bit lower. So maybe you could, maybe grab a position once it falls a little bit more. But, like Mike said, you'll have to do a better fundamental analysis on it. But I will say, like, the price action below $100 so far today, Mike, is pretty telling. Like, look at this. In pre-market, we fell below 100, and then whenever the market opened, we just tanked straight down. Like, that was a pretty big drop there at open.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what does turn me off with AMD is, like, let's say we compare, like, AMD's fundamentals to, like, Intel or Micron or something like that. A lot of times, stocks that are within the same industry have comparable, like, fundamental ratios. For example, like, for the most part, all car companies will have similar price-to-sales ratios. For the most part, all semiconductor companies will have similar price-to-sales ratios and PE ratios and stuff like that. And it's just because they have similar businesses. So, now check this out. If we went to Intel, for example, right? Intel currently has a market cap of $192 billion, okay? $192 billion is what they're worth. In 2021, they brought in $79 billion in revenue, okay? So that's trading at a price-to-sales ratio of around 2.4, okay? So keep that in mind. 192 billion market cap versus 79 billion revenue. Now, if we went to AMD, you have 158 billion market cap for only $16 billion in revenue. That is a price-to-sales ratio of 7.1. So you have to pay a lot more for every dollar of revenue. On top of that, Intel has a net profit margin of, 25%, while AMD has a net profit margin of 19.2%. And then on top of that, if we look at AMD, which has a price-to-sales ratio of 7.14, Micron only has a price-to-sales ratio of 2.5. So it's like, from the surface, it feels like AMD can definitely trade a lot lower given its current revenue and market cap. But that, again, is just one metric. And to effectively analyze this, we would have to look at a lot of other factors. So keep that in mind. But AMD is not something that I'm buying at this price level. But if it continues lower, I would definitely entertain it.
Yeah, and I will say, on this downtrend, I'm definitely looking at a nice entry at some point. I just don't know when I'm going to enter. And, I'm already into Intel and a couple of the other chip plays, so I'm not really too big on AMD right now, kind of like what Mike said. But, in the future, I'll definitely be looking to get it if it goes low enough. And, maybe once we see some stability, like a nice support starting to form somewhere or something like that, then it might be time. But, yeah, for right now, I'm sticking away from it too, Mike. And, man, today's pretty telling. I mean, AMD fell below 100. That's a pretty big support. We have Nvidia falling down to like down below 220 actually right now. So we'll have to see how this movement keeps going. But as of now, it's definitely pointing to the downside this week.
Yep, no doubt. We have Sam saying, any thoughts on Palantir? It's one of my holdings for the long term. I like it. It's been struggling a lot along with other growth stocks. It really sold off over like the past week or so, but again, like most stocks also did that. It's really just a longer term holding for me. I really don't trade it too much in the short term unless like the bot calls it out, but it's I don't really have much else to say besides what I said, Tom.
Yeah, there's a pretty big support coming up on Palantir, like right around $12 a share. As we can see here, $12 is, we've had a lot of different bounces on Palantir at $12. Looks like we are approaching 12 again today. But I will say, be a little bit careful. These supports might not hold up too well if the market keeps tanking down. This could easily just blast right through $12. But I will say 12 has been a pretty good level in the past. So maybe we'll start to see some bounces soon. But, if the overall market keeps going down, I think the chances of Palantir going down are probably pretty high as well. But, I really feel like Palantir will be a good longer term pickup at some point here. And I will say, Mike, like it's very low right now. And that $12 support might not be a bad time to have an entry if you really, really like it for the long term. But, I will say, so far, at least so far this morning, Mike, this week isn't looking too hot. So I'm wondering how low some of these stocks will get this week.
For sure. All right. Yeah, I'm doing another scan, Tom. It looks like a pretty rough start to the week. Apple's breaking lower by the minute, along with Nvidia, Peloton, a lot of other stocks, AMD, but it's tough to see like even Apple moving like it is.
Yeah, it's looking terrible actually. It's falling. I know we fell below 170 on Friday with Apple, and it was starting to look pretty rough. That was a pretty big support there, but I wasn't expecting a move this bad today. We're all the way down to 167 now, and it looks like it's starting to sell off more rapidly here. Microsoft really looks bad to me, Mike. Like it's just been straight down today, which is pretty insane. Like no one, I don't think, would have expected this, at least this type of movement, at least this like close to open. I would have maybe thought later in the week or something like that we would see a bigger drop, but I guess we're gonna start the week off on a bad foot here, Mike. So we'll have to see what happens. But looks like we might have to play some puts this week with the way this movement's going. But you're right, these bigger stocks are down, and I'm going through my watch list here, and something that's pretty surprising to me, Mike, is we've been seeing some of the commodities like gold start to rip up, but we're starting to see like crude oil actually fall off. Like look at crude hit $92 a barrel this morning, and I will say some of these crude oil companies like Exxon and Chevron and Oxy are down in a pretty big way too.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, Oxy's down 5%. Jeez.
Yeah, like look at this movement today on the 1 minute candles. Like ever since open, this stock has just been seriously ripping back to the downside. And I know last week Oxy kind of surprised us on Friday and exploded, but it looks like it's given back a lot of those gains. So maybe Warren Buffett's going to be sad today. I know I kept saying Friday he was going to be jumping up and down with joy, but today he's going to be upset.
Yeah, and what I think is very interesting is like if we look at crude oil futures, like obviously those are tanking right now, but like lately a lot of these commodities have been moving together. So it's like you look at crude oil, it's down over 4%, but then check out gold and silver. Those are actually having great days so far. So it's like we're seeing a lot of stocks tank down historically, like recently we should say. A lot of times when stocks tank down, the commodities all moved higher together, but now oil is kind of moving with the market, at least today, while gold and silver just continue higher. And what I wonder, Tom, and this is kind of like an out there thought, I wonder if like gold and silver are moving higher ahead of the CPI report. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. And then, also we had a lot of big events last week with the Fed. So, we had the minutes come out, which was pretty telling. They definitely had a hawkish view there. And I feel like ever since that minutes came out, like on Wednesday or Thursday, we started to see like gold start to rip back up. So I could see that, Mike, and if those numbers come in higher than expected, who knows? We might see gold start to maybe go up and retest like 185 or 190 even. So I definitely feel you with that one, because that report later in the week is going to be big. believe I still have it up here. Yeah, here it is. So tomorrow morning before market open, we're going to see the core inflation rate come out. And I know this is going to be telling, Mike, because the Feds have been talking about the core inflation rate a lot. So, if this comes in higher than expected, we'll have to really keep our eyes on the overall market. And, I'd hate to see another down day, like kind of like this morning. Like if we wake up tomorrow and those numbers are bad and we see like the SPY start ripping down, it'll make for a really bad start to the week there on Monday and Tuesday.
Alrighty. Tom, and I also want to point out DraftKings today. So a lot of stocks are falling quite a bit. DraftKings is up around 2.5%, which is awesome. I'm not seeing any crazy news right now, but it is awesome to see this movement. What is interesting is like a lot of these growth stocks lately have had like negative correlations to the market or just aren't correlated with the market. So if you look at DraftKings, Palantir, Zoom, anything like that, they basically just move on their own. So it's like on a day when the market's kind of tanking down, it's not bad to see some of these stocks at least greener than the overall market.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, that's good. I'm glad to see DraftKings up there. I will say though, Mike, like I feel like I'm not seeing too many growth plays really in the green besides like DraftKings, but I will say though, like it's good to see some of them up there. I believe I see like Lucid is maybe green. Yeah, Lucid's kind of back in the green. Rivian's green. So yeah, that's pretty cool to see, Mike. And it's pretty surprising, like you said. I would not have expected that. There is still some down, of course, like Peloton and Zoom and stuff like that, but it's cool to see DraftKings and Rivian and stuff coming back. I will say, like, DraftKings is not looking bad, Mike. Like, look at this on the 1 minute candles. It's been straight up almost since open. So pretty crazy movement there. Like you said, they definitely don't follow the market, but I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, and part of me is wondering, Tom, if it's just like shorts covering too. You know what I mean? Like, because like if you look at DraftKings over like the past 5 days, it's been like nonstop bleeding. So I wonder if it's just like shorts covering.
Yeah, I honestly would not be surprised if that were the case. I mean, like you said, it's been really tanking down, and I hope shorts cover and push it up even higher. I mean, heck, if they want to all cover right now, they can. That would definitely make me happy. So they can. The sooner they do that, the better. But looking at I'm looking at the news tab for DraftKings this morning. I'm not really seeing anything too much, but they are kind of talking about a bet on some baseball, Mike. They say, can Spencer Torkelson win Rookie of the Year? Here's how much a bet on the Detroit Tiger rookie will pay. And they have a whole article on Thinkorswim about this bet, Mike, believe it or not, which is kind of funny. And they go into all these statistics and stuff like this. And it's kind of funny, but looks like there is some like pretty crazy payouts with this. So like, you can get like a plus 500 or DraftKings has plus 450. So that's pretty crazy. But, I know that guy's supposed to be a good rookie, but I just wanted to point that out because Mike, like I feel like we haven't seen too many articles like this about betting in the Thinkorswim news tab. I wonder if this will like help like get them some marketing or something.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jay Deep said UFC 273 was a beast. And then he also said one of the best fights of the year might be the reason for DraftKings ripping. Yeah, it's possible. And then, Tom, we also had the Masters and the MLB, I guess you could say, opening.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the MLB opening day just happened. Masters just happened too. Congrats to Scotty Scheffler for winning that one. Man, that golfer, Scotty Scheffler, has been on fire this year. I haven't seen anyone on like this on fire ever since like Tiger back in the day. So it's crazy to see him doing that good. And I'm sure he's bringing in some bets, like he's won like 5 tournaments this year or something already. So it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, DraftKings is ripping up, lots of sporting events going on, which to me, that's pretty cool. I always like to see sports. And I will say, Mike, like, I wonder, how like DraftKings was initially ripping after IPO and it flew up like kind of like right after COVID. I wonder if COVID played a big role in DraftKings. Like, I wonder if more people were betting online during that, during those lockdowns.
Yeah, I would definitely think so, so.
Yeah, because like there's nothing to do. So I guess you just watch sports and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of sports were kind of like closed down, but they did end up reopening. But yeah, I would definitely think that the lockdown definitely opened more people to online betting. And it also really helps that DraftKings has been continuously, going into new states.
Yeah, they have. That's big. I know they just legalized in New York a couple months ago, maybe like just before the beginning of the year. But that was great news whenever they legalized there. I thought that was going to really help DraftKings stock rip back up. But Obviously, it didn't. You know, it just kept consolidating and moving slightly lower. But those states, I think, should bring in a lot of revenue, Mike, especially big ones like New York. And like we keep talking about, you know, Florida, Texas, and California still have to do it as well. And I feel like once they legalize, we'll see a lot of big numbers. And hopefully we see a nice influx in the DraftKings because, you know, I know in New York, Mike, at least a couple months ago, didn't you say FanDuel was the biggest sports book there, or was it Caesars?
No, it was Caesars in New York at the time of the video. So that was almost like 2 months ago, I want to say. So yeah, it was like
Yeah, so
Caesars.
it could have changed, but at least back then, Caesars was the king.
Yeah, for sure. Like I know in a lot of states, like the top two books are DraftKings and FanDuel. They're like neck and neck. You know, some states DraftKings the leader, some states FanDuel's the leader. But I know specifically in New York, like Caesars had a pretty dominant market share.
Yeah, that's pretty telling. I remember us talking about that a lot whenever it happened. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I normally personally, like, I've been seeing a lot of FanDuel and DraftKings everywhere, usually. You know, my state's not legalized in Missouri, but see, like, we can just drive 30 minutes over the border into Illinois and then it's legal. So it's kind of a weird game. And, you know, your phone, like, tracks your location. So it, like, knows where you are. But yeah, either way, it's fun to use. And, you know, I will say these betting apps, Mike, are pretty good. And you know what really makes me like think that they'll do good for the longer term is that, you know, like a lot of people who sport, you know, now this is good and bad, but you know, sports betting is pretty addicting. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like that these companies will do well just because of the natural tendency to get addicted to this stuff. Because like, you know, I've seen a few friends and stuff go kind of crazy with sports betting.
Yeah, I mean, gambling's been around since like the beginning of time, and it's likely not going anywhere. And then on top of that, like what DraftKings and FanDuel and all these other companies are doing, it's like a lot of times, like, how do I say this, Tom? Like everything's just changing with technology. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this new online sports betting is a new thing for a lot of people, like especially like in these states that didn't have access to like gambling before. So either way, I'm very excited about DraftKings' future, and even though it sucks how much the stock fell over like the past couple months or so, you know, it's not just DraftKings, it's basically every single growth stock, and ultimately it will, and it is providing an opportunity for us to get more shares for cheap if we want to.
That is true. That's a good point. You know, we can get a lot of shares down here cheap, and you know, you can sell a lot of puts too. It's only $1,700 per contract right now, you know, with the current pricing. So that'll be pretty big. You know, you can sell like if you know, like up at the top, Mike. I remember we had a few members getting like, you know, maybe like 5 or like 10 grand worth of DraftKings, something like that. You know, if you did that now, you could sell like, you know, maybe 6 puts or 6 or 7 puts here. So that's pretty big, Mike. And you know, I'm sure some of these puts are worth quite a bit too, with this IV being so high up above 100% here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we have Sam saying Musk being investigated about a trade violation on his Twitter trade. So yeah, I think we all knew this was coming. He filed way too late, but he actually saved a ton of money doing so. So check this out, Tom. Like, let's go to like a daily chart of Twitter. I forgot the exact day he started buying, but long story short, when you buy, how much was the position, Tom? It was like 9.2% of Twitter, but that's like $3 billion, something like that. It was like $3 billion. But basically what Elon did is he strategically waited to file so he could get more shares, and he did this, and he saved like hundreds of millions of dollars doing this. So what's probably going to end up happening is basically he's going to get fined like a couple 100,000 or a couple million or something like that, and he'll end up still saving like hundreds of millions of dollars, because as we saw when the news released that Elon was buying into Twitter, the stock exploded up like, what was it, 20%, 15, 10%, something crazy. And obviously he wouldn't have got as good of a price if he waited, so he'll be fine. I think we were all expecting this.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, that's pretty telling there though, Mike, that he reported it that way. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, it was insane to see Twitter stock moving in such a weird way. And you know, I do feel like that investors they might start to think like, hey, Elon did this strategically. And as we can see here, Twitter stock is popping right back up, even though it dipped this morning. So it looks like the overall market isn't too upset with what happened, Mike. And I was a little bit worried today. Whenever we saw this pre-market action, I was a little worried we'd see some big red candles on Twitter here, but I'm happy to see it going back up. And, I'm glad Elon's playing this out strategically because I know he might not have done it the best in the beginning, obviously, with him reporting and stuff, but I'm glad that he's not joining the board because, like you said, that's going to be pretty big if he can maybe acquire enough position to actually have some good influence over him.
Exactly. He's playing chess, Tom. We all know this. Like, in my opinion, what's probably going to happen is we knew for a fact that if he joined the board, his position, his max position, was going to be at like 14% of Twitter. But now that he's not joining the board, if he wants to, he can buy half the company. He can buy the whole company if he wants to, and then he's really the boss. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you have a lot of power and influence when you're on the board and you own 9% of the company, but you have even more power and influence when you just own the whole thing. Or if you own like half of it and you're on, you know what I mean? It's like, I think he's playing chess. So I think he's going to continue to slowly buy more Twitter shares over like the next couple weeks and the next couple months.
Yeah, I think so too. That'll be a really cool thing to keep up with. And hopefully he reports it better, Mike, because that way he won't get any investigations again. But hopefully he learned his lesson there. But look at Tesla today, Mike. We actually had some nice green momentum earlier on ever since market open. And, we came back up and we actually just touched $1,000 on the dot pretty much. Now we're falling right back off to the downside. So very interesting movement here. But yeah, overall here, it's not looking too bad. And I will say, like, Tesla held up a lot better than I thought it would at market open.
There we go. Awesome. All right. Give me 1 second. So, Tom, I'm doing a quick look through my watch list. We actually have DraftKings leading the way, which is awesome. But I want to shift over to one stock really quickly, and that's Delta Airlines. This one is up like 4% today. It's definitely booming up, and I'm trying to see if there's a specific catalyst for this. Let's see. I'm not really seeing anything. I'm just seeing like a breakout with the stock.
Yeah, the cruise lines and airlines are really moving up well. I mean, we have DAL running along with AAL. Even CCL's up today a lot. So that's pretty telling there that all these airlines are moving. Even Southwest is starting to come up. I think this is a great move, Mike, because, these poor airlines have been getting beaten down lately. Like, I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was pretty upset to see like Delta all the way down there at like $30 or like $29.75 at that low. They started ripping right back up, and then last week we had another bad drop. Like last week, the airlines are pretty much straight down again. So I hope we get some nice recovery back to the upside, especially since we're getting into like some of these like summer months where I feel like the travel should start to pick up a little bit. So I think that we should see the airlines start to move up. And Mike, I remember like earlier, maybe like a month ago or 2 months ago, the airlines had projected some pretty good numbers for this year. So I hope that they keep up with those goals.
Yep. All right, Tom. So we have Trading Lifestyle saying T is getting slapped. Have you looked at that? AT&T getting clapped. So this is interesting. So we can see clearly the stock price is lower today than it was on Friday, but the ticker symbol at the top says AT&T is up 5.7%. Basically what happened is they finally did their spinoff from Warner, I believe, Warner Media, and that is why we are seeing this adjustment. So it looks a lot worse than it is, but the stock is actually up like 5.7% today.
Yeah, as we can see here on the Thinkorswim News tab, it says how the AT&T spinoff has complicated trading in its stock. And, you can scroll down and see, how everything is looking down here. And they give a whole bunch of nice information with this, but you can pretty much see how they're talking about AT&T is going to have a new dividend yield. It's going to be about 5.9% now. Obviously you can see that they said in pre-market trading, Warner Bros. Discovery was trading up slightly at $24.60, and it's interesting to see AT&T actually up, Mike. Like it's up 5%, which is pretty telling. Like I know that obviously it doesn't look good on the chart, but obviously it was just a spinoff, so it shouldn't affect their valuation too much, right?
No, it'll be all good. Like it's just when we have like corporate events like this, it kind of just like makes everything complicated, and it kind of like just confuses a lot of people. But we can do a video probably later today or later in the week talking more about this, but it'll be all good. It's basically the same thing. They just finally did their spinoff with Warner.
Yeah, interesting. And it actually says right here, Mike, that a large portion of AT&T shareholders, an estimated 45 to 50% of them are retail investors, that's pretty big, isn't it, for a stock like AT&T? Like, I would have thought more institutions had it personally.
Yeah, I agree, Tom. I feel like that is quite a large amount, and I feel like part of the reason for that is because of the large dividend that it pays.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too, and now the dividend seems like, I don't know what it was before, Mike, but I thought it was like 4% or something like that. But now it's up to, what I just say it was, I think like 5.2% or something. That's pretty big there.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, the stock's doing pretty well today. So, good job, Peter, with that one. What else do we have going on? Let's see. We have the Life of Caleb saying GLD dumping. Yeah, it was looking so good this morning, and it totally turned over, Tom. Like, it had so much momentum along with silver, and then right when a lot of these other stocks started reversing it to the upside, GLD took a decent hit.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, this was a pretty big drop here, and it was pretty bad to see. I mean, this is a pretty big hit at open. Like, that's a pretty big pullback, but I will say though, like, it's not so large of a pullback that, like, I don't think GLD can't go up later in the week. Like, if we do have like the data come out tomorrow morning with inflation worse than expected or something, I think gold definitely has a good chance to still go up, but it's definitely pulling back today, Mike. And there's actually like a bit of like intraday support down here, like around 182 or even like at like 180, 180. Looks like we are getting a bit of a bounce here, at least on like a 1 minute standpoint.
There we go. Yeah, DraftKings is still going. It's nice to see this one leading the watch list. It's not too often when this happens.
Yeah, look at this. It really is. It's leading mine up 5.2%. And, actually just behind DraftKings, I have another one that's pretty surprising, Mike, and General Motors. They're actually up 4.5% today too. And even F is up. But, these are three stocks that are like at the top of my watch list here, really running. And DraftKings is starting to really break out above $17 here, running all the way up to $17.30. I mean, this is a pretty big move to the upside.
There we go. Yeah, it's looking awesome so far. Then we have Allison saying the XLF is seeing a little bit of love today. Let's see, XLF, financial stocks. Yeah, they're not looking bad. They're up like 0.5%, which definitely isn't bad for a slow-moving ETF like XLF. So there we go.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's really starting to move up in a good way. And I mean, this is it's having a nice move up, and I wonder how the banks are doing here. Let's go check out like Bank of America. Yeah, I mean, Bank of America is really moving well. I've moved up to $40, just started to break out above that, which is awesome to see. And JP Morgan's breaking above that high of Friday there. So you're right, these banks are really running up. And I know, like, if we look at the banks on a daily, like JP Morgan's having a pretty good bounce on support.
Awesome. All right, and then we have J Deep saying NEO took a 180. Yes, it did. Jeez, Tom, it was down like 10 or 11% at open, and now it's only down like 3.5%. Look at that amazing uptrend over like the past 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty telling there. I mean, that's a pretty big move back to the upside. It bounced like right off $18, and it's coming back up in a major way. So looking at it, it's definitely having a nice move. And man, these EVs are coming back alive, it looks like. Like General Motors was up in the green, but I know NEO's now coming back, and I wonder how XPEV looks. Yeah, even XPEV is coming. So looks like we might see a turnaround out of these China plays. But I will say, Mike, like, I'm not too bullish yet. Although if we maybe start breaking above like that $20 resistance here on NEO, I might like it a little bit better. But it's going to be a tough one to day trade today, Mike. Like, with the way it dropped like that, it's going to be tough playing it back to the upside here.
Yep, I feel you. All right, and then we have the Life of Caleb saying Facebook with a question mark. Let's take a look. FB, it's down a little bit today, but it's also on its way back up. It kind of reminds me of NEO a little bit, just looking at the intraday setup of Facebook. Like, it tanked down right at open, and then it's starting to come back up. So let's see. Tom's going to pull it up right now. Facebook.
What ticker is it?
Facebook.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. All right, so looking at Facebook, obviously, like I said, it dipped down right at open and starting to come back up, similar to what happened with NEO. Facebook is one of my favorite longer-term plays. I feel like it's at a good level for the long-term anything can happen in the short term. Over the next month or two, this thing can be back at 185 or it can be at 270. Short term, I'm not really too concerned about it, but I feel like this dip that we've seen and that we're in is definitely providing a great opportunity for a long-term investment.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, it's looking pretty decent here. 218 is a pretty good intraday support, but even on the daily, I mean, 218 has been a pretty big support in the past. And even if Facebook starts to go lower, like maybe towards 200 or even like 185 again, I still feel like it'll be a good buying opportunity down here at the lows, you know? Just like we say with a lot of these growth plays that are down here, Mike, like Palantir and DraftKings and stuff, they're just at such good discounts compared to the past that we think that there's just there should be some good upside potential in the future, obviously. And, you know, the way Facebook innovates and stuff, they're pretty good at keeping themselves relevant. So, you know, they should be a pretty good longer term hold, I think. And, you know, if I was going to start right here, like, you know, averaging in a little bit would not be a bad idea, I don't think.
No, I think that's a good idea for sure. You know, as long as you're planning to hold it for the long term. Like, if you're going to pull one of those things where it's like, all right, I'm going to buy it for the long term, and the stock falls like 6% over the next couple weeks, and then you sell, then it's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like, you have to make the decision. Are you going to buy and hold, or are you not going to be in it? So it's like, if you're going to buy and hold, I feel like it's at a good level. It's a kind of a volatile stock, especially for like a blue chip like Facebook. But they do have earnings coming up too, and they're not going anywhere. You know, they own Oculus, which is pretty big into like virtual reality, and they are a very strong powerhouse in the social media game. Obviously, you know, Facebook or Instagram, WhatsApp, they're a powerhouse.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're huge, and like you said, like Instagram and stuff like that is honestly, I feel like I haven't seen the numbers lately, Mike, but I feel like Instagram has maybe been gaining in popularity a little bit. I'm not 100% certain, but, you know, like in my groups of friends and stuff, I've definitely seen more people using it lately. You know, I wonder how Twitter's starting to do again today, Mike, because I know like Twitter on the daily chart here was doing so well. Like if we look at it on a daily, like ever since Musk made that announcement, obviously it ripped, but even before that announcement, it was doing pretty well. So, you know, kudos to Twitter for already popping back up. And I wonder how Snap is looking. Yeah, Snap's kind of more like Facebook, just continuing to stay lower. But, you know, I guess we need Elon to join Facebook too. Maybe that'll help.
Could you imagine? Jeez.
Oh my gosh, I think Zuckerberg's head would explode if that happened.
But like, I want to see something really quickly. So right now, Twitter has a market cap of like 38 billion. The problem is Facebook has a market cap of 606 billion, so I don't think that's even an option. Like, of course, Musk can take a giant position, but he doesn't have like the how do I say this? He doesn't have the, like, not the opportunity, but like he doesn't have like all the freedom he has with Twitter with Facebook.
Yeah, I think so too. You're right. It's a different animal for sure, and that's pretty insane to even talk about, Mike. Like, I can't believe we're even talking about this stuff right now, you know? Like 2 weeks ago, you would have thought I was nuts if we were talking about Elon getting into some of these companies like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. But let's see, I'm looking through a couple other scanners really quickly and some watch lists. Looks like Boeing is moving in a decent way, Tom. Boeing is currently up 2.5%, and it's not looking bad.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's really not. It's coming back up
Boeing,
in a big way.
Boeing.
Oh, Boeing. Sorry, it's like lagging today. It's having a little bit of issues here, but yeah, Boeing's looking pretty nice. It's coming back. It's up 2.4%. It's in the green, so that's a pretty big move up there.
All right, there we go. Most of my watch list is now green. I don't know about you. But yeah, it's looking pretty good today. Tom, what are some of your favorite setups for today and the rest of the week?
Yeah, they're looking, some of my favorite setups are the airlines, honestly, Mike. Like, I think they're looking pretty hot here. You know, they're up like 3.8%. I really hope they start to come back today because they're starting to rip back to the upside in some pretty good ways here. And, you know, even if we look at something like Beyond, you know, it's up 3.2%. It's coming up in a big way, and you know, it's looking nice, and I feel like Beyond is forming a pretty nice support down here, Mike, like around $42. I know that Beyond isn't really in any specific sector. I guess you could say like the growth sector, but it's definitely coming back up today, kind of like what we're seeing like with DraftKings and Plug and a few of those other plays. So, the growth plays are turning back around, which I'm really happy to see. And like actually looking at Plug Power here, I wonder if we're going to see like Enphase coming back. And we are, because I know Enphase recently, Mike, hit a nice resistance at like 220, started dipping back down. And I've been kind of waiting for another bounce back up during this dip. So maybe this will finally be the beginning of that.
Yeah, the solar stocks have been doing pretty well over like the past month or so. Like I know over the past week it's been a little bit rough, but even Sunrun, which is RUN, which is what you're on now, it's been moving up for the most part. But I think that'll be pretty good. Let's take a look at the TAN ETF really quickly. This is basically just a combination of a bunch of different solar stocks, so that's good. It's been moving up. Let's see what else we have moving. It looks like Home Depot's moving up in a pretty decent way. Yeah, Home Depot's not looking too bad.
It's not. It's actually doing very well. It's up 0.9%. And yeah, it's starting to break out of that high of Friday up there around like 312.50. So it's having some very nice movement actually. And I will say like what would you consider Home Depot, Mike? Like a value play again?
Yeah, I would definitely say so.
Yeah, like a nice value stock here. I know Lowe's or LOW is kind of like them, and looks like they might start to break out too. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with these ones today. But so far today, they're having some good movement, and I wonder if Caterpillar's kind of moving this way, and it looks like it is. Cat kind of formed a nice support last week down here around like 214 and coming back up. So yeah, these are pretty nice stocks, Mike, and like you said, they're value plays, but they're also kind of like, what would you call them? Maybe like construction stocks, or like I don't know if that's like the right term for it, but I know that like Caterpillar deals a lot with construction, and then Lowe's and Home Depot are obviously used a lot to buy like equipment and parts and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So Finviz has Caterpillar in the industrial sector and then in the farm and heavy construction machinery industry. So it makes sense.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. That's an interesting sector there, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, what was it? Heavy machining and construction?
I just closed it. Yeah, I said farm and heavy construction machinery.
Wow, that's funny. That's a tongue twister there, Mike. But yeah, Caterpillar is definitely moving well today. And I remember back whenever they were trying to pass that infrastructure bill, and I believe that's like whenever Cat started ripping back up after COVID. I remember that was huge because everybody was talking about Caterpillar at that time. And I will say Caterpillar went on a pretty crazy uptrend for that almost a year straight there. So that was a pretty big move. And I'm curious to see how Caterpillar does in the future, because I'm not sure it'll be able to go back up and retest those highs again.
All right, there we go. Let's see what else we have moving. Looks like these bank stocks are doing pretty dang good, Tom. Bank of America, JP Morgan. Some of these other ones are rising ahead of their earnings this week. We have a lot of banks reporting earnings on Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, we do. This is big. I mean, JP Morgan is moving back up. I wonder how those earnings are going to be, because I know the last couple times, Mike, these banks, like the last earnings report was awful. I remember JP Morgan was just getting destroyed there, and it dragged all the other bank stocks down with it. So man, I hope it goes better this time. Looks like JP Morgan's forming a pretty good support, like I said earlier, somewhere like right around like 125 to 130. Looks like a pretty good support level there. So hopefully we see some nice like bounces back to the upside. And like Mike, like with these earnings here, I wonder how the banks are going to like project their outlooks, because the Feds are finally raising rates again. And remember, whenever the banks were falling off, I believe there was also some news coming out about the Russia situation potentially making the Feds not raise rates as quickly. And I feel like that now that the Feds are talking about raising rates at even a more accelerated pace, that might help these banks go back up here.
Yeah, I can see it. I can definitely see it. I also saw some articles saying that the inverted yield curve could hurt banks too. So that is another thing to keep in mind, because a lot of times the banks will make the spread off of the treasuries. So for example, like let me just go to the treasury yield curve right now. Give me 1 second. Yield curve. All right, to give a good example, let's see. So like basically a lot of times the higher the yield curve, people say it's better for banks. And then when that spread it does not, and when that spread gets inverted, I've heard that it could be a bad thing for banks. So I guess that's just one thing to keep in mind for like a bearish catalyst. At the same time, we're looking at the bullish catalyst for banks with rising rates.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I hope it's more bullish than bearish here, but man, that bearish catalyst sounds pretty bad too, Mike. But yeah, I mean, I hope it goes up. So far today, we're moving up. I know one day obviously isn't too objective when you're looking at a stock overall, but hey, we'll take the green momentum so far, and hopefully they have some good projections. And I'm curious, Mike, like when will the banks do another stress test? Like I know that they do stress tests every once in a while, and I'm curious to see like how some of these are going here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to definitely look into that more. I know the banks were under a lot of pressure, like especially when COVID first hit, because the government didn't want them to get like too greedy with everything that we had going on, and then end up being caught in a bad situation, similar to what happened in 2008 and 2009. Like if you look at basically any bank stock in 2008 or 2009, it looks terrible. Like a lot of these stocks, like it was Citigroup the other week, Tom. We were looking at a max weekly of Citigroup, and the share price fell by like 95%, and it's still not even close to like being fully recovering from its all-time high.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's like I know like whenever we look at the daily chart here, Mike, like that all-time high on Citigroup is quite up there. I mean, that is pretty telling. Like I know like back from '08, we were talking about this last week, right? Like this thing tanked off in such a bad way. Like man, like that all-time high is all the way up at like 591. Like Mike, this looks like Zoom's chart here.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too. But man, I mean, that was a crazy drop. I will say, Mike, like obviously that's probably not going to happen again, right? Like with 2008. Like I know that was a pretty insane time, and the banks should be better protected now. I believe. Like I believe they have a lot more backing now, and obviously there's stuff in place to keep obviously a situation like 2008 from happening again, where there were like so many issues, but especially with the housing market. But either way, I mean, I feel like that's just such a weird catalyst, Mike. Like obviously, for a bank to fall that much, we know there was obviously some issues going on.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Doing a couple other quick scans. It looks like we are seeing some of these defense plays move higher, like Raytheon. Raytheon is currently up 2.5%. Lockheed Martin's up around 2%. So they're looking pretty good. They're definitely powering up, especially on a day when stocks are mixed. The S&P's pretty... I mean, the S&P, Tom, is down 0.75% basically, but it is coming back up, especially from open. So, I don't know. It's not looking too bad.
Yeah, it's not. Like RTX is coming up in a nice way. It's even breaking above the high of yesterday. So I like that. And it's kind of bouncing off $100 too. Like it kind of had a nice bounce there in pre-market, and I like the way it's coming up. So definitely good movement here out of these defense plays, Mike. Good eye, because last week I remember they were kind of coming back up, and it looks like they're definitely going to be trying to retest these highs here. So these are definitely some pretty nice setups here. And if we see maybe like a break of the high of yesterday, who knows? It might make for a pretty good trade, but I'm curious because I don't know with these defense plays, Mike. Like I want to play into the upside, but we're seeing some pretty crazy price action out of these. Like they're getting volatile, obviously, and I'm curious like if they're going to keep running or not. So far, it looks like they will this week, but I'm curious to see like when these turn over, how much they start to drop back down.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, and I mean, Tom, for the most part, it looks like we covered like all the most important movers so far today. What I do think is pretty interesting is while we have some growth plays looking very good, like DraftKings, Corsair, SPCE, stuff like that, we see some of these other growth plays like Zoom that's kind of stuck in the mud. Zoom, Teladoc, stuff like that. So, today's interesting in the sense that we are seeing some positive movement, but it's limited to only some stocks. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times when growth stocks are moving up, they're all blasting up. But today it's just a little bit different.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see the difference with this. I mean, I will say Teladoc's in the red, but it did have some nice movement there at open, even though it is down today. FSLR and like some of these solar plays, Mike, are really ripping. And that's pretty telling. Like you see the SPY selling off, and these growth plays are kind of starting to move up. So who knows, Mike, like maybe if we do see the SPY keep dropping down, this gives me some hope because we might start to see that transition maybe out of some of those safer plays or like the value plays, and maybe we'll see some more money start flowing back into these growth plays, kind of like what we're seeing today. Although, kind of like what we do say sometimes, Mike, this could be like some shorts covering or something, but I will say with the overall sector going up, it does give me hope.
Yep. All right. Let's see. We have some people talking about like SPY in the Discord. What's your opinion on some of the most important levels, like after today's price movement?
Oh, this is huge. I mean, the SPY is falling down in a pretty big way, and it fell under 444, and it had a pretty good move. So far this morning. Initially, it ran down to 442.89, but I will say, like, I just don't like the way it's consolidating here under this support. I have a bad feeling today, Mike. It looks like another one of those days where SPY is just gonna like slowly slide off throughout the day and just start to fall back down. And I hate to say that because it looks like a lot of stocks are moving up, but we're seeing those bigger tech plays like Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, stocks like that down. I know Tesla's trying to come back right now, but poor Microsoft here is still making new lows. So we're seeing a lot of mixed movement across the board, and I feel like the market doesn't like it right now. Obviously the SPY is down, and I feel like that we might start to move lower today, especially if we start to see some of these stocks keep turning over. Like I mentioned, Mike, even some of these big oil plays are down today. Like Exxon's down 2.2%. If these plays continue down, I mean, we'll see a lot more selling pressure come in.
All right, there we go. And then Square said, good morning. Target and Walmart looking good. We didn't talk about these ones yet today, Tom. These retail stocks have been doing very well over like the past week and the past couple of weeks. So check out Target and Walmart. Today they're kind of pulling back at least a little bit. They're just not really moving. I wouldn't even call it a full pullback. I would just feel like it's like a consolidation day.
Yeah, I would say so too. It's just kind of pulling back, and I don't think it's going to do too much today, to be honest, Mike. It's already not looking good. We have the market down, and while some of the value plays were doing okay this morning, they're probably not going to go crazy. And let's be honest, Mike, we need to expect some red eventually out of Walmart. What was this? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is going to be the 11th day now. So I guess 10 green days in a row was enough, it looks like.
Yeah, for now, right?
Yeah, till the end of the day, and we're at 160.
Jeez. Alrighty. But yeah, I think we covered everything, Tom. Do you have any last minute thoughts or anything like that?
No, nothing too major as far as thoughts, but guys, just keep in mind, we do have the core inflation rate coming out tomorrow morning before market open. So just keep that in mind. It's going to be a fairly big event. You might see some volatility heading into tomorrow. So if I know a lot of people love to day trade options that expire this week, I just want to say, be careful with those this time. You could obviously do very well on them, but at the same time, with the inflation rate coming out, if you hold something overnight tonight and then something changes in the morning, it might go against you. So just keep that in mind. Just be careful. This could definitely be a decent event. I don't think it's going to cause too much fluctuation, but who knows? Now that I said that, the SPY will probably drop or rise 5%.
Oh, gosh. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. Before we close out, I want to personally thank all of you guys for joining. So thank you so much, George, Hunter, Mike, Keisha, Vicky, Michael, Sam, Kathy, Sean, J-Deep, Caleb, Trading Lifestyle, Sam, Square, Allison, and I think that's everyone. So thank you guys so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.